What's up everyone out there in YouTube land? It's me, Perry Lovewhistle, and I'm back on Acadian in Project Quarm. And as you can see, I am one full gold bubble into level 49. I just got the level during a live stream, and I managed to get myself a little bit of a buffer, which is good because Kunark is out. Actually, Kunark's been out for about a week, but I haven't had a chance to play yet. But that's alright, I haven't missed out on anything, and it's time for me to get caught up and do a little bit of exploring. So of course you'd have to wonder, if Kunark is out, what am I doing in North Karana? And the answer is because I want to discuss some of the lore, as usual. This expansion is the Ruins of Kunark expansion. And with ruins right there in its name, it's no surprise that lore is going to be a big part of it. And actually, one of the biggest parts is the wizard spires, which you can see one of on every continent in Classic EverQuest. The other port locations, like this one in West Commonlands, don't have big spires like that. They have these pyramids. And we're also going to discuss some of those in a little bit. But each continent just has one of these sets of gigantic spires. And the spires and the pyramids, on the surface level lore reading through the game, are relics of the Combine Empire. As a matter of fact, even the one I'm going to take in a second to get to Kunark is called the Combine Gate. As a matter of fact, the reason why I'm in North Karana is because the gypsies, which there's a couple of gypsy camps, there's a couple in the Desert of Roe, one in Lava Storm Mountains, and one in the Wraith Mountains. They sell Combine weapons, which are usually your first magic weapons that you come across. That's really the only purpose that they serve. They're like fine steel weapons, but they're magic, so you can use them to kill will-o-wisps, which is good, as you can come back to the gypsies and trade the greater light stones for platinum and experience. But they sell the Combine longswords, which are the easiest to get relics of the Combine Empire, sold by the traveling gypsies. They also sell the group portals for both wizards and druids. That's actually the reason why I'm here, to scoop that up. But these portals themselves are actually not built by the Combine Empire. And we're going to talk about the Combine Empire a little bit more over the course of my Kunark videos. The short version is they were a really magically advanced empire of a lot of different races that in about, I think, 200 years spanned all of Norath and then disappeared. And it's just sort of one of those, all this ancient magic lost, easily retconnable empire to build a lot of magic-based lore off of. And they do that eventually. But initially, the Ruins of Kunark expansion plays off of the spires, and specifically talking about the fact that the spires were not built by the Combine Empire. They actually figured out how to use them. They were built by the Shisar Empire, which are snake people. And if you look at this side of the spire, it even kind of looks like a snake, right? Coming around there with the bitey top. So it's possible that this was even originally part of the plan and not just something that they came up with later because it was clever. But I'm going to take off from these spires in North Karana straight to Kunark using the Combine Gate, which takes me to the Dreadlands in the center of another wizard spire. No surprise there. I also want to point out how different the trees are in the Kunark expansion. This was a big deal in the year 2000. Look, all of the branches move. I remember that this slowed my dad's gaming computer down to about 1 or 2 frames per second because all of the branches moved individually. Amazing. Basically photorealistic. Video games are never going to get better than this. Okay, back to the lore. So it drops me here in these spires, but right over here, just a little bit away from where I spawn in, is an even bigger set of spires. As a matter of fact, I think without changing the default clipping plane, I can't even see the top of it. I could use the levitate trick to get up to the top of it if I really wanted to. But at the bottom of them, and it is just a giant set of spires, but at the bottom of them is a whole bunch of little pyramids. Some of them even have rooms that you can go inside of. These ones are filled with Plaguebone Thieves. Over here is Brother Balaton. He is an NPC for the Monk Epic. In the middle of it, here's Clock Fitshal, who is a NPC vendor. Sells food and drink and bandages and arrows, which makes this place a great place to grind out levels, especially for wizards. I was here on my ranger for several levels in the 50s, but the lore of this place is that it was actually originally a Shisar city, and then after the Shisar Empire fell, the Combines took it over and used it as a Combine outpost, and then after they fell, the escaped Ixars came up here and used it as a monk training post. So these ruins have been ruins 3 times. I don't think I've ever actually been in this one. I wonder if this is added later. I don't know if this is in here on Project 1999. Or maybe I've just never done Bard quests in Kunark. But this place is called the Lost Valley. It's a great place to grind XP, and it looks like only one person is currently using it. And there is a tiny set of spires over there on the little pyramid, a normal sized set of spires out here in the front of the outpost, and a giant set of spires outside of it. Spires are the theme here. And aside from the Combine outpost, the Lost Valley is pretty much big and pretty and empty. This is also the primary port point coming into Kunark, despite the fact that Kunark is a huge continent. The other 2 ports, which I'm about to go by, were originally meant as evac, so they were only supposed to be able to be cast from inside of a dungeon. So, for a while on Project 1999, everybody coming to Kunark would port in through the Dreadlands and then go out through this little tunnel. Before I go through it, I'm going to put on some invisibility and levitation. Because this is kind of... First of all, it's a fun part of coming to Kunark, but it's also really interesting to sort of show how much the scope of the game changes with this expansion. Because when you come out this cave, it puts you at the top of a mountain all the way at the west end of a gigantic zone. And there is some stuff that sees invisibility here, but if you levitate as you come out of the cave, you end up coming up so high over everything that nothing can aggro you. I'm going to try not to lose too much altitude while still taking advantage of levitate. As you can see, my clipping plane is just a little bit too close to really get the Dreadlands effect here. Here is just a little example of how big this zone is. You start out in the snowy mountains where there's yetis and a couple of drachnids. The giants look a little bit different here in the Dreadlands. There is also some lore behind that. And as you continue east out of the icy mountains, you get into the forest area. Past that is this big desert area with Drollvargs, which are big armored knoll monsters. And then Karnor's Castle, possibly the most popular dungeon in Kunark. Not only because of how convenient it is to get to it, you just teleport into the Dreadlands and run east, but also because it can give you experience all the way up to level 60. Getting those last few levels in Karnor's Castle isn't exactly easy, but it's always populated, and there's also lots of drops for epic quests in Karnor's Castle, including one of my last 2 remaining drops. Given the size of the zone and how plentiful all the mobs are, this is a great place for bard kiting, so you'll always see a couple of bards running around the Dreadlands. And here we are, all the way at the east end at the cave. It took me about 10 minutes of constant running to get all the way across this zone. In classic EverQuest, the only zone that was really that big was Western Karana. In Kunark, that's almost every zone. So, unless you have some sort of movement speed enhancement, Kunark is a lot of really slow running around. But coming through that cave lands me in Fironi, right in the middle of a bunch more drachnids. But these ones are much lower level. Well, Fironi is the good city in Kunark. And I'm always curious, because being a Sayusek Ro worshiper, I'm not always sure that I'm going to be considered good. But I guess I am, just enough. They are apprehensive. So, they're not exactly happy about me, but they're not attacking me. Fironi is yet again ruins, because the whole plot of the elves and dwarves and gnomes coming to Kunark has to do with the Princess Fironi being kidnapped. But when they established this encampment, it was actually at an encampment that had already been discovered by elves a long time ago. They just quickly set up that nice statue over there. And as a result, this is a whole complete little city here. It has a bank, Wella and Welford Fargan. No relation. Class trainers for, I think, all good classes. If I'm wrong, if there's a class trainer that isn't here, let me know in the comments. These guys back here selling spells. There we go. And specifically the ones I'm looking for: Tishan's relocation and Markar's relocation. There's another spell here that I'll have to do a quest for, but it's such an involved quest that that's actually going to be a video all in itself. But I'm going to head over to the docks, and try and make the boat. I wouldn't have spent so long touring the city if I'd realized that the boat was already here. Come on. And I didn't make it. Looks like this guy didn't either. Or that's just the best Fen death ever. It looks like I've got a little bit of time to wait to catch the boat, so I'm going to get those new spells memorized and come back when the boat comes back. Alright. I've got my spells memorized and the boat is finally here. It has been a while since Acadian has taken a boat. I think the last time I took one was to go into the Ocean of Tears to get my Robe of the Oracle. But the boats they added for Kunark are much, much bigger. Obviously elven design. They've got this little elven house in the middle of it. They've even got a whole little basement in here. Or lower decks, I guess, if you want to talk like a sailor. Which is, of course, good to take the time to walk around, because the boat ride in Kunark is also much longer. I probably won't even have zoned by the time I get back up. We haven't even departed yet. And we are finally underway. Onward to the Timorous Deep. Which is supposed to be everyone's first zone in Kunark. You're supposed to take this really long boat ride through the Timorous Deep, which is another gigantic Kunark zone, which also allows you to get a few quests and just sort of get your feet wet in Kunark. Ran into a viewer. But Timorous Deep is also a gigantic zone. It's modeled after the Ocean of Tears in that it's a whole bunch of islands, each with a unique set of monsters on them with their own individual little set of levels. Some are much stronger than others. I'm actually going to see if I can just swim to that island. And here's actually the first little elven outpost. There's not much to do here except use it as a point to start from while hunting in Timorous Deep if you're not quite big enough to go into the rest of Kunark. But it's also a good waypoint for where I'm headed, which is the far southwest corner of the zone. Of course, the easiest way to get there would be to levitate and invis and run across the water. But that takes a really long time, and I can actually jump halfway there just by casting my Evacuate. Evacuate in Timorous Deep puts you on Chessboard Island with Ulrich Farsight, who you're familiar with if you watched Zaner get his lightning swords. I had to come here to talk to him about a bowl or something, but you got a nice little chessboard over here. There is a really high-level monk on the top of one of these mountains who will absolutely destroy me if I get too close to him. South of here is where I'll be fighting a bunch of raptors once I get my level 51 quad kiting spells. Normally I'd have to worry about accidentally aggroing some of these guys, but it looks like somebody else is already quadding them. A couple people. On one of the raptor islands you can see there's a druid spire over there. And way out here at about negative 12,000, 4,200, you can see the tips of a couple more wizard spires poking out. This is the reason why I had to make sure if I got on at all this week, it was to come here. Because at the bottom of this is something called the Firepots room. And I'm going to bind here, even though as a wizard this doesn't give me a whole lot. It is still a pretty useful little room. And the Cursed Traveler is something different. Oh, the Cursed Traveler is a warning about Fadedar. So each one of these little fire pots is just like the fire pot in one of the cities in EverQuest. And if you click on it, it'll take you to that city. So being able to get yourself bound here is incredibly overpowered if you're not a wizard or a druid. If you are a wizard or a druid, then it really kind of just gives you access to Halas, the barbarian town, and Kanos, because otherwise they're really hard to get to with just ports. But I'm going to go ahead and bind here anyway, just because it is kind of tradition and I'm actually able to. And on this server, I don't have to worry about Fadedar, because that's really the issue. There's a raid mob that spawns within aggro radius of this zone. If you are doing a quake and you die and they haven't killed Fadedar yet, you can end up stuck in a death loop where the big dragon comes in and chomps you, and then chomps you again until you disconnect from the game. But that is actually all I had for today. Just sort of an announcement that Kunark is available, and for the first time ever, I was able to bind at the firepots. I don't know when Secrets is going to take away binding at the firepots, but everyone is rushing here to do it now so that they have access to all these really great clickies. Now I have all of my regular ports, plus click ability to every city in Norath. Now with that power, I need to get back to leveling, because it doesn't do me a whole lot of good to be level 49 when Kunark is out. I need to get up to level 50 so I can take advantage of some of the other really cool stuff from this expansion. So until next time, bye!